Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of 2 Samuel. Today we're in 2 Samuel chapter 18, and we're looking at some lessons from this conclusion to the account of David and Absalom. And Absalom and David's armies are going to meet for battle, and this is going to wind up being the conclusive finale to everything that has transpired over the last 4 chapters. And so you're going to have a situation where Absalom is going to lead his men into battle, but the people are going to respond differently when it comes to David. And that's where we want to start. Because as the army prepares to go out for battle, David says he's going to lead the army. And the people say, no, we do not want you to go. And the reason is not because they don't love David, but rather it's because they do. They say if anything happens to us, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal in the overall scheme of things. Nobody's going to care in the long run. But if anything happens to you, that's the end of everything. And the key component in all of it is not to see how much the people loved David and not to see how much his men cared about him or things of that nature, though we can focus on all of those things. But it's in David's willingness to listen and his unwillingness to just stubbornly have his way because he's the king. This is good advice, and this is good counsel, especially in this particular situation. And David is going to listen to it. As a matter of fact, he says in verse 4, whatever seems best to you, I will do. And so he is not going out on the battlefield because he is listening to the advice of the people who are closest to him and the people who care the most about him. This is one of the attributes of leadership that sometimes gets lost. And that is the fact that leaders are to be ones who are supposed to be at the forefront. They are supposed to be the ones that people look to, but they are also supposed to be the ones who are able to listen and able to take good advice when it is given to them. Leaders don't always have to be the ones to make the best decision or the final decision. They just have to know it when they hear it. And so here you have David, who is willing to listen and he's willing to take the advice of his people because he trusts his people enough to do what they need to do, even without him present. That his generals will lead the army appropriately and that they will fight with a valor that is appropriate and that they will go through and win even without him present. David is willing to listen to good advice. Now, he is also going to give orders when it comes into the battle, and ultimately, those orders are not going to be followed. The orders that he gives to his 3 commanders of the 3 units of his army is that Absalom is to be left alive. And he says it not in private, but in front of all of the men, so that everyone knows that this order has been given. But we're going to see here in chapter 18 the death of Absalom. That David's order concerning Absalom is not going to be upheld. As a matter of fact, it is going to take place that when Absalom's hair gets stuck in the tree and he's left hanging from the tree by his hair, that it is going to be Joab himself who is going to go and, against the orders of David, is going to have Absalom killed. He's going to place 3 spears into him, and then his men that are with him, his personal staff, as it were, is going to finish the job of killing Absalom. And then they're going to take him and bury him. One of the interesting things when it comes to this section of Scripture is that, yes, Joab did disobey David. He disobeys David in very much the same way that Absalom does earlier on in the book of 2 Samuel. because he is going to do what he doesn't feel David has the strength to do, and that is to finish off a rebellious and sinful son who is trying to usurp the throne. Absalom did the same thing to Amnon when, after 2 years, there is no real punishment for Amnon for his sin against Tamar, Absalom's sister. And so Joab, remember, is also family. Joab is David's nephew. He is David's sister's son. And so one of the things with Joab is that Joab is a member of the family, and as such, he has, he believes, freedom to do some things without repercussion that others could not get away with. As a matter of fact, that seems to be the reason why he doesn't want to send Ahimaaz back with the message and instead wants to send the Cushite with the message of Absalom's death, because he doesn't want anything to happen to Ahimaaz. Remember, Ahimaaz is one of those who has been David's informants, David's runners from Jerusalem, from among the priests. And he is going to be one of those that is not from the inner circle of David, but he is a loyal servant of David. Joab doesn't seem to want him to be caught in the crossfire of what it is that he has done, because he knows that he has violated the orders of David. But we see in Joab the willingness to, in some ways, protect his king, even though the king has told him what it is he wants him to do. Joab is going to take matters into his own hands regardless of his orders. But then in the third place, in chapter 18, we see at the end of the chapter David's sorrow. When you come down to verse 33, David is told about what happened with Absalom, and he receives the word that Absalom is dead. And David is deeply moved, and he goes to his bedroom, or to the chamber over the gate, and there he cries out, "Oh, my Absalom, my son Absalom. If only I had died in your place, O Absalom, my son, my son." He is devastated at the loss of Absalom. And this really gives us a glimpse once again into the character of David. Here is a son that has disobeyed him, that has rebelled against him, that has killed one of his other sons, that has done everything that he can to destroy him, and yet David is still filled with this very deep and immovable love for his son Absalom. David still didn't want anything bad to happen. Now, there were many kings who had absolutely no qualms with destroying their sons or with destroying their wives or any other individuals around them that got in their way. That is not David. David's sorrow, David's grief is poignant, and it is easily observed. David is one that even wishes he had died instead of Absalom. Here we see a father's love for his children, and while he does not handle everything correctly, he does not do everything the way that it should be done in regard to his children. He still does not seek any harm to come to them. Was he angry with Absalom? Yes. Was he struggling to find his relationship with Absalom after he killed Amnon? Oh, yes. But it did not mean for a moment that David did not love him. The same thing holds true with our Father's love for us. While we may do all kinds of things that bring about anger and hardship and reproach for the actions that we have committed against God, God never stops loving us, and He never stops caring about us. Things are going to happen with the choices that we make that can sometimes be very detrimental to us, but it doesn't mean that God doesn't love us. These are some of the things that I found in 2 Samuel chapter 18. I hope that they're beneficial to you. Next time we will come back and we will begin looking at chapter 19. But until then, have a great day.